Hi there, I'm Lance Cummins. I'm the founder of Nectafy, and today we have the chance to talk to two experts who have worked in the field of content marketing and in freelance writing, and we're going to discuss ChatGPT and the impact that it's having on that industry. And so we're super excited to welcome AJ and Amy. AJ is the senior editor at Tandem.buzz and the Buzz Ambassador, which basically is a cool way of saying PR person. And we're so glad to have you here today, AJ.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to speak with you.
And Amy is a freelance writer and also ghostwriter of long form nonfiction, I believe, if that's correct. And we're
correct.
super excited to have you as well, Amy.
Thanks. Super excited to be here.
All right. So we're going to dive right in because we're all in the content industry, and I have a feeling you guys had a similar experience, or maybe that moment when you first heard about ChatGPT and started hearing about things rolling in, and you may have thought what I thought, which is, what in the world is happening right now? Amy, tell me about your first time of hearing about ChatGPT and maybe experiencing it just a little.
Yeah, so the first time that I heard about it was in December of last year, and I tried to have it write my newsletter for me as an experiment to see how far it was to replacing copywriters. And I saw pretty quickly that it was still pretty far behind. But I realized in the last few months that it's not about replacing copywriters. This is a tool that can be used in a lot of different ways in terms of the generative aspects as well as on the productivity side. And so it was kind of a little bit of a shock to the system to see it start to get better and better and to generate things. And so it's been neat over the last few months to really kind of like open my mind to the different possibilities of AI. But as a writer, and I think a lot of writers felt this way, that it was kind of a shock to see, artificial intelligence jumping in and starting to use words in new ways to kind of approach content differently.
AJ, how about you?
Well, the founder and president of Tandem, Joe Laratro, is a very big proponent of ChatGPT and AI technology. And from the beginning, I remember him making a comment to the effect of ChatGPT won't replace people. People not using it will replace people. And I believe that he had talked about that with Brett Tapke, who is the founder of PubCon. And Brett Tapke, I had the fortune of being at a session that he held on ChatGPT, really kind of going into it. And about every fifth slide said, ChatGPT won't replace people. People not using it will replace people. So I'm very fortunate. I was kind of molded to understand that it's a tool that's there to help us, not to replace us. And I quickly began testing it to see what it could do and how I could best use it. And I've been pleasantly surprised so far.
Yeah, I was kind of a similar situation where the first time I heard about it sounded super intimidating. As I experienced it for the first time in those initial rounds, I was like, oh, shoo, they're not going to replace this anytime soon. And then you realize how quickly it develops. And the whole reason they opened their testing up was essentially to continue to train their large language model. And you realize, oh, wow, this thing is changing very, very rapidly. So maybe tell me, how do you think things are now compared to when you first started experimenting with ChatGPT in terms of its usability for us here in the content world? AJ, what did you notice between now and then?
Well, it's not, if there is one, I haven't found it, but it's not like there's a user manual that you can follow that says, oh, do this, then do that, then do this. So it wasn't until more recently that I realized that ChatGPT actually saves each individual conversation. So if you're talking about science, and then you want to switch and talk about math, and then you want to switch and talk about reading, whatever the case may be, you can actually go to each of those conversations because the program is learning about that subject the more you use it. So I've made sure that I have separated each of my clients that I use it for into their own conversations so that ChatGPT is learning and it can better itself each time. And again, that was something I didn't really know at the beginning. Another tool that I learned to utilize was creating prompts. And by finding out how ChatGPT GPT, is the most receptive to my requests, I write almost a script saying, this is a client, this is what we're going to talk about, these are the keywords that you need to use. And then I could use that same format for the next piece and the next piece. And I did that recently for someone. I had to write 14 pieces for the same client. 7 of them were under one category and the other 6 were a different category. It was 7 under one, 5 under one, and then the 2 headers for a total of 14. So they were all within the same chat so that it knew about the client. But I was able to use those prompts, and I was also able to improve the prompts, because if I found I wasn't getting what I was looking for or it was going askew, then I would change them. So like every time I've used it, I found something else to make it better for me. And that's something that everyone needs to kind of keep in their heads. No one should think, I'm going to go in, I'm going to use ChatGPT and it's going to get everything right away. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be right. It takes a lot of invested time to get it to work properly and to provide you with what you're looking for.
That's really good. Yeah. Amy, what did you already kind of gave me a hint in your previous comments, but what are you seeing the difference between then and now for you?
Definitely. There's 2 things that I think are really fascinating about how AI has evolved in the different ways that it's being used. The first thing, kind of jumping off what AJ said, is the art of the prompt, because it's so funny to see that the way that you prompt the AI can change everything from output to the style of writing, even to the depth of the way that it researches. And so if you tell ChatGPT, you are the best researcher or best writer in the world in your field for this topic, give me something great and write this piece as if you are that greatest researcher, then it'll approach something differently than for you to just say to it, hey, write me a blog post. And so I think what's so funny is that the art of prompt writing is kind of like copywriting. That precision of language that you need in the prompt is that nuanced kind of human communication that you need as a copywriter. And so it's kind of funny, that art form that's starting to emerge, and how prompt engineers and prompt writers are starting to kind of take the wheel of trying to like steer the ship with how we're communicating with the AI. And then the other thing that's really interesting, also jumping off what AJ mentioned, is the kind of long-term memory of AI, and how there's these vector databases that are emerging, and how we're starting to understand how to use AI to kind of absorb an entire website or absorb all of these different client materials so that it can use our data to then kind of generate and be more specific and be more accurate. And so that specificity is kind of really interesting, because if you're just using ChatGPT with no memory, no history, it's not learning off of any data, then it's harder to get it to be more precise than when it starts to learn based on your data and information. And so that's the kind of the leaps that I've been making and kind of playing around with the last few months.
Yeah, that's really good. It's funny you mentioned this. Every time there's a technological disruption, right, everybody panics because, it's going to wipe away everything. And what we learn is it turns into essentially all of the skills that were around and useful before that technology just sort of morph into another skill, right? So writing, knowing how to write a great prompt is going to be the used to know how to write a great headline skill, right? It's like this similar creativity, thinking about the end user. Now you're not just, as you talked about, telling the ChatGPT who it is. You have multiple personas now you're dealing with. And now you're not just writing for a persona that's going to read your stuff. You're also trying to communicate to a persona who is going to write the stuff that your other persona is going to read, right? So like you're now having to think at like 2 levels. So while technology is disrupting us, it's actually creating bigger opportunities for those who think creatively and understand like, now I have to talk to this precocious 5-year-old to try to get it to generate something for my client over here, right? It's kind of this crazy extension of what we already know to do. So you referenced this just a minute ago, Amy. You were talking about trying to figure out how it could help you like in your daily work routine, ChatGPT or AI tools in your daily work routine. What are some things that you have found that have been very useful in making that more efficient, productive, whatever the goal is? Tell me some tools.
Definitely. So one of the tools that I've been playing around with has been this AI tool called Cody AI. And there's a lot of tools kind of similar to this that are jumping out, where you're basically uploading a lot of information or scanning through web pages and having the AI model trained on your data to then spit something out. And as a writer who does a lot of long form book content, where I have a lot of interviews or drafts or client materials that I'm trying to search through to find an answer, it's helpful for me to be able to ask the AI, tell me all the instances in the current draft of this book that the author mentions this person, or pull these 3 excerpts that I need in order to rewrite this section, or generate something for here. And so with my long-term book projects, especially, I've ghostwritten a lot of cold cases and like legal thrillers, and it's been very difficult to kind of keep everything in your mind at once in terms of all of the legal documents or client interviews. And so trying to understand how AI could potentially help me work faster with my clients, where I'm needing to pull in a ton of information and to try to find answers quickly during rewrites. And another thing that's been really interesting is that some of my clients who aren't writers are using ChatGPT to then generate the first draft of what they're kind of thinking about or looking for, and sending it to me to then do a rewrite on. And so it's helping them better communicate to me what they're looking for in terms of blog posts or white papers or things like that, or even kind of more like chapters of their book, so that they can kind of have a role in being the author of their story, but also understanding that it's not 100% there yet, and they need someone, a professional, to come in and help them fine tune the language, help them rewrite these pieces that they're generating with AI. So it's a great tool to also help my clients communicate with me, even if they don't really have a strong writing skill.
That's really interesting. Because I'm not super familiar with it, before, if you wanted, in the illustration you said of like finding instances where so-and-so said something, without the AI technology, what's the process you would have to go through to find that before?
Yeah. So before, I would have to control find through multiple documents, multiple iterations of drafts, through call notes, through call transcripts, and just try to like search across multiple documents. But what's kind of neat with AI is it's bringing all those documents under one roof, all those call transcripts under one roof, and allowing me to more quickly go through materials or things we talked about, rather than me being like, all right, which of the 20 calls that I've been on did we talk about this memory or this chapter of the book that I'm working on right now? And so it's kind of supercharging my process in terms of how I work with clients and how I more quickly get to the finished draft or of their book and their story.
Got it. That's really interesting. Wow. So it is a time saver in that case.
Definitely.
Wow. AJ, you mentioned a second ago how you're using it. Give me another illustration of ChatGPT or any other generative AI tool that you're using.
Well, actually, I really love what Amy just said about how she is telling ChatGPT to go specifically to something to give her information, because ChatGPT lies, sometimes not on purpose, but it will spit out incorrect information. So it's really important to verify whatever it creates or finds for you. But if you're giving it specific instruction like that in your prompt where it's going to a specific place, you won't have that issue. I know when I used ChatGPT, I would say, can you please provide sources? Because I wanted to make sure that they were correct. So it would write the information, it would look good on the onset. And then when I would go to the source it provided me, it would be an invalid link.
Yep.
So it's really important to go ahead and verify what it gives you. Don't take it as, oh, it wrote it for me, so it must be correct. Regarding what I use it for, I use it for research also, because it does the research much more quickly, as long as you don't need something specific, or it's not something that you need an exact number in. It's better because of the information that it has access to. It's not completely up to date, so not every piece of information is going to be as accurate as things that are posted today. That's not in the database right now. But you can still do general research about general subjects much more quickly than if you wanted to write a piece yourself, and then you had to go from website to website, source to source, looking up the information, composing the information. So in general, I like to use it for content writing. But I do give it a lot of direction because mostly I'm doing SEO. If I'm just replying to something, my personal opinion, I enjoy writing, so I'm just going to write it. But if I'm writing something for a client, then I'll utilize it there.
Okay. The other day I tried to use it. I got an email and I'm like, for fun, let's go see how I'm supposed to reply to it. So I put it in. I actually using a tool called copy.ai, which is essentially like a layer over the top of ChatGPT. And it cracked me up when I saw the response because I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to take me so long to edit this thing. I'm just going to write my email. And I know it's because I didn't tell it the right stuff and all of that. I just basically copied and pasted in the email and said, reply to this email and just to see what would happen. So it's not, for me, at least, it's not always a time saver. And I enjoy writing. And I've discovered that when I write, apparently I don't write at a very high level because all the detectors think that I'm, writing for a 5th grade level or something. So I don't know if that's good or not, but that's what it's doing to me. All right, so let's do a little speed round here. I don't know. It sounds like a game show. I don't really know what that is, but just quickly tell me, what's one of your biggest fears about, let's say, generative AI? So I'm using that term to be ChatGPT and any of the tools layered on top or, alternatives to it. Biggest fear of how it relates to content. Okay, because we know there's obviously the big fears that, it's going to take over the world and kill all of us. Let's not do that. Let's focus on content. And then what's the thing that you hope comes out of this? Let's say when we're looking back on this moment a few years from now, what are you hopeful will happen? So I've thrown a bunch of words in here to give you time to think. Who wants to go first? Fear, optimism.
I'm happy to go first.
Okay.
My greatest fear is that the online content space is going to get so crowded with AI generated materials that we're not going to be able to find the stuff written by humans or curated by humans. And we're just going to have so much more spam on the internet that is just kind of pushed out there to take over Google and distract us. My greatest hope for AI is that it unlocks the imagination of people who maybe didn't have a strong grasp of writing or creativity and needed a little bit of a boost to help organize their ideas. And so I'm hoping it'll unlock a renaissance that allows people the ability to jump in and create things without the tools of being a designer or a writer or a photographer, but to be able to unlock their imaginations. And my fear is that we're just going to get a lot of crowded mess of nothing and everything is going to look the same.
All right, good. AJ.
Honestly, I don't fear ChatGPT. I fear the people that fear ChatGPT because they're very closed-minded and that can cause chaos. So that's my biggest fear. But I hope that people realize, being that it's a tool, that they should utilize it to make them better writers. They shouldn't look at it and say, "Oh, I don't need to write. It can write for me. What do I need to do?" Use it to learn from it. There's so much that it can teach you that you should take advantage of that. And I hope people realize that and start to do that more so.
That's really good. Actually, both of your optimisms are similar. The idea that essentially what this does is it makes things more accessible to more people, right? Which that's always been the promise of technology, that technology comes in, makes more people able to access the game. It gets more players on the field. Supposedly, it makes everything cheaper, and it gives us more time. Those last two things haven't always happened, but the first thing is it does always involve more people, and I like that a lot. It basically, all of the people who maybe had creative ideas but weren't able to create let's say the initial draft or even the initial outline. So I've never been officially diagnosed with like attention deficit, but I'm pretty sure that's what I have just because, well, there's probably a lot of obvious reasons. But I think it's very, very interesting. So I used to tell my friends and my coworkers, one of the hardest things in my life is to create a sequential list from beginning to end. Because what happens is I start a list and my brain goes, oh, but what about this? And so before long, I end up with like 8 bullet points, and then there's a jot over here in the margin, right? And then there's some kind of doodle, and then there's like a highlight, and then I find myself on the next page talking about something else, and I never finish the list. So with these tools, I wonder if it creates some structure for those of us who can't stay focused long enough to like finish a thought. maybe there's some optimism there for me. I'm excited to see what happens. All right, let's talk about, so the other end, and you mentioned this just a second ago, Amy, about your concern of all of those who are trying to get Google to pay attention to it. Right, so that's kind of the world we're into, growth content. We're basically search rankings and always about getting quality content so it'll rank well. And Google's always talking about we're going to filter out the bots and we're going to make sure this is human writing. And I believe that's their intention. My larger question is, what does search even look like, let's say, in a year from now? I mean, we used to talk about 5 years and 10 years out, but now we're talking probably months. But we'll just say in the distant future, 1 year from now, do you guys have a sense of like, what is this even going to be like? In other words, is there even going to be a place to compete for search rankings? Is that a thing anymore? Do you guys have any thoughts on that, or is this sort of like a whole other thing?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you go.
Go ahead, AJ.
No. People were under the impression that the use of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, was going to be a real problem with the searches and with Google. But it's, at first, it was month to month, and then it was week to week. And now it's almost like day by day, where they're kind of changing their stance on what's going to happen regarding if something is written by AI or something is written by a human. And part of that is there are AI detectors. I've tried out a couple of them myself. The 14 pieces that I mentioned previously that I used ChatGPT to write the base, but I made changes on each of those pieces. I definitely touched it, made changes, made improvements. I put all 14 of those in an AI detector. 3 of them came back definitely human written. 4 of them came back AI written. 3 of them came back, I don't know. And the remainder came back a mix. So those AI detectors are not necessarily in tune with being able to say this is AI and this is human. And I heard something relatively recently where someone said that one of the ways that some of those detectors work is if they're seeing the same content over and over, like if you put in a document that everybody reads, then these detectors are going to presume that it was written by AI because so many people are producing the same thing. So I found that comment to be very intriguing.
So are you saying that potentially the idea of, like, Google's talking big stuff about we're going to eliminate what the bots are writing, potentially they're not even really able to identify what's AI versus human? Is that the summation of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Amy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I come from a different kind of approach to what the future of search is, in terms of, I think it's going to be more focused around the creator economy of individual creators creating content on multiple channels, including website content, video content, podcasts, things like that, and having that organic content funnel that becomes searchable on so many different channels that everything kind of rises with the tide, rather than just investing in written content for Google. Because what we're seeing is that people want to buy from other people. We are human kind of oriented. And so with the Google being bogged down with more and more content mills and content that can't pass AI detectors, but maybe are written by AI, and all of these people kind of hacking that system, the thing that you can't duplicate as easily is a personality that you can trust, that you believe in. And the thing that I've seen that's helped my business quite a bit is I have a following of 48,000 people on TikTok. I have a following across multiple different platforms. And what I'm seeing is that AI is going to make my job as a content creator, not just a blogger and freelancer, a lot easier, where there's this one tool that I'm just starting to use that takes your blog posts and a sample of your voice, and then creates out of nowhere, generates an introduction to your podcast out of scratch that sounds very persuasive, creates music, and then reads your blog post in your voice.
Yes.
And then you can upload that to YouTube and podcasts. And so making a podcast, and I was about to actually record the audiobook for my new book that just came out, and I was going to have to sit in a little closet, with a microphone reading my book for like a week. But then I realized with this tool, now what I can do is just record a sample of my voice instead of having to hire an editor and, sit in my closet for a week. I can just have AI read my entire book, and then I can upload that as my audiobook. And so what I'm seeing as a content creator is that my ability to create this organic content funnel across all these platforms is going to be so much easier than it was even just a few months ago.
That's really interesting. So I've been around for a long time. That's my code word to saying I'm old. But basically, I started my first web design business in 1996. And as I explained this to my kids the other day, that was in the era where you literally would call a business and say, "Do you have a website?" And they would say, "What's a website?" Like, that's the era we're talking about, right? So I've been doing this for a while. And I was thinking about this as I was preparing for our discussion today, that what used to happen in terms of internet marketing, obviously a totally different landscape, is that you essentially were you were spreading the word on a lot of different platforms. And obviously there weren't all the platforms that there are now, but I mean, this was back in the day of you would work really hard to get listed in the DMOZ directory, right? Which was like a catalog of the internet, which sounds so bizarre. Search engines just started appearing, but there were like dozens of search engines. Nope. If you said search the internet, you didn't say Google something, you just said search it. And then you would say, what platform are you searching on? And every platform would rank differently, right? So there were all of these, you were constantly thinking about like, how do I show up on Alta Vista? Or my favorite search engine name of all time, Hotbot. How do I show up on these platforms, right? And then what happened is Google came in and just like owned everything. Boom. Now all we care about is Google. Well, suddenly Microsoft adds their little chatbot to Bing, and there's all this uproar about what's going to happen to Google. And I was thinking, oh man, we're back to almost headed the other way, where now we're going to have, you got to make sure that you're ranking on this platform and this platform and this platform. And Amy, what you're talking about with essentially like that personal aspect, you have to have that personal branding, that connection on all of these different platforms. But the good news is AI, like you just said, is there to help us multiply ourselves, basically. And so instead of the battle being in one ground, Google, it's 100 grounds, and we have a whole army of bots helping us do this, for lack of a better term. So it's really, really interesting, right? Like we're everything old is new again, and we're kind of back to, oh wow, now I have to be concerned about a lot more than just what does Google think about me. Is that a fair assessment, or did I just ramble for no reason?
No, I think it's kind of exciting to be back in the Ask Jeeves days of
Ask
the
Jeeves.
search engine
There
Wild
we go.
West. And so I'm here for it. And I think that what's kind of fascinating is that there's going to be such a huge advantage for people, business owners, creators, content marketers to own a lot of these channels really quickly if they're able to get on top of all of these AI tools and automations. Will just make it easier to push out good content, because good content is always going to be king no matter what, since there's going to be a lot of it, but there's going to also become more ways to sift through and to curate content so that we can get to the stuff that is meant for us and is personalized for us in some way. And so I'm curious to see what those kind of curation tools will be and how they'll emerge.
That's good. You guys have been more than kind to spend some time with me, so I don't want to presume on that too much longer. Just give me, as business people, are there some ethical concerns that we should have, or ethical like guidelines that we should be thinking about when we're talking about ChatGPT, generative AI tools, transparency, usage? I don't need to list all the different things, but is there anything that comes to mind of kind of how do we structure this, or how do you personally address the idea of using generative AI in your creative workflow?
I think
Definitely.
that the transparency, I believe is a word that you just used, is a really good, important thing to be ethical. You're better off to be upfront about your clients and telling them, I'm utilizing AI to assist in content creation, as opposed to not mentioning it at all. And then you have a client who would thinks that you shouldn't be using it or whatever feelings they might have about it. So that transparency and being upfront is definitely important. But another thing that everyone needs to keep in mind is it's a tool. I know I've said that a couple of times, but it's important that you don't take everything that it writes and be like, okay, here, ChatGPT wrote this, here it is.
I'm done.
Well, I work with a bunch of very talented writers. There's very, very talented writers where I work, and they are using ChatGPT, but they're still kind of learning how to best use it. And when the content gets to me for editing, many times I'll find repetition, not necessarily in the bulk of the content, but in how each paragraph is started or how everything is phrased, because ChatGPT doesn't have those nuances to write as a human does, and to say, wait a second, it's difficult if two paragraphs start with the same set of words. I should really change that up a little bit. So people should use it for what it's there for, but don't use it to try and replace everything, just to make things better.
Okay, good. Amy?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything that AJ said. And I think that transparency and honesty is really important. And I think that in the ethical push of this, every business and business owner and creator and content marketer should have, first of all that transparency and understanding that ChatGPT is not just going to give you the answer. And then I think everyone in this space should also assign somebody on your team to be the AI R&D person, the person who's going out and testing these tools, trying things out, letting the rest of the team know what is working, what is not. For me, that's my partner Kyle Cords. He does all of he's trying out AI Slack bots and trying out all these tools to see what will work, because I think that before you introduce a tool or an approach to using ChatGPT into your process, you have to test out, is this accurate? We're going to produce something that's close to accurate, because AI is going to make a ton of mistakes. Is this actually going to be useful in our process? Is this going to be something that's going to help our goals? And so I think that there's so many tools that can be very hit or miss. And so almost every freelancer, solopreneur, small business needs to either find an AI consultant or somebody in your team, or even just somebody in your life that really loves that kind of approach, to be able to try out these tools, because there's so much coming out every single day. And I know that I'm on 100 AI newsletters and there's so many different tools to try. So I think that the ethical side of this is just as important as the understanding that we're kind of in a huge era of change, and just keeping up with that and understanding how this stuff can or cannot help our workflow is almost a full-time job at this point.
I appreciate you sharing those thoughts. Oh, nailing my microphone here. Sorry. So I appreciate you guys spending some time with me today. I'm gonna ask you a question, and then I'm gonna talk for a couple of seconds to give you a chance to think of how you want to do it. So I appreciated you guys spending time with me today. I want you just to give me a 30-second pitch for whatever it is that you want to give a pitch for, because you guys have been kind to give me your time today. I have some ideas of what maybe that could be, but we'll see what happens. So you guys will get that ready here in just a minute. I'll give you the floor. So basically for Nectafy, for what we're thinking about all of this, is we're trying to figure out, we currently have a very thorough system of all human endeavor from the top to the bottom, right? It's we have a client, cool. Who's your persona? Let's talk about this for days. Now let's dig into this and all this human effort, right? And as I'm sure you both know, that's very expensive. And so we've been trying to figure out as a team, where are the parts that we can use GPT? How do we implement this into our system? And so we're by no means the experts on how to do that, but we are willing experimenters. Let's just say that. And we're having a lot of fun doing that as well. All right, so that's what we're doing. Give me your pitch. Amy, you go first.
Definitely. So my approach is figuring out how to create artisan high-end content using the tools of AI, mostly with long-form content and book ghostwriting and publishing services. And so my goal is always, as an artist, to create that high-end content, but to understand how to use AI so that my artistry can scale further, and then my team can help people with getting their books ghostwritten, getting their Substack content out there, trying to understand how to create this high-end human forward, personal brand forward, long form content that will really move the needle for you in terms of your larger content engine. And I have all that information and more at amysuto.com. And I also just released a book called Six Figure Freelancer about my journey as a freelance writer and all that good stuff.
Fantastic. Yeah, I saw that one of the courses that you're offering about how to keep AI from replacing you as a freelance writer. I think that, did I get close to that? Is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So I wish you the best success on that. And so say the domain again.
amysuto.com, and that's SUTO, my last name.
SUTO.com. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much, Amy. AJ, give me your pitch.
Well, as a representative of Tandem.buzz, our website is Tandem.buzz, so pretty easy to remember. We do everything digital marketing, from search engine optimization, which is SEO, to pay-per-click marketing, which is PPC, to social media marketing. You name it, if it's related to digital marketing, we can help with it. I personally work on online reputation management along with SEO clients, along with the editing. We do enjoy using AI to improve our performance, but there is a lot of work that goes on in the back end. We're an SMB located in South Florida. We represent many different genres. And if you have any questions about how digital marketing can help you, so that when people search for your company or what you offer, your services or your products online, you want to be at the top of those search results, the search engine result page, which is the SERPs. So Tandem.buzz can help you do that. And if you want to find out about me, there is a page on me on the Tandem page. You can also connect to my LinkedIn from there. Feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to get you in contact with who you need to talk to.
That's fantastic. Oh, you guys have both been very engaging today, and I really appreciate you taking time to come talk to me because we had never met before this call. So this is a super, it's like I have two new friends, which makes me very happy as a social person. So thank you so much to both of you. And if you're watching this today and you've managed to make it all the way through this entire thing, first of all, congratulations and thank you. And we look forward to getting to provide some other information to you in the future. Hope you have a wonderful day.